2018. Today is March the 6th, Election Day. I wanted to record this to respond to your really great discussion about the process readings and rhetorical readings, especially about the process, because so many of you are teachers and are required to teach something about process, but then again, the same is true of the rhetoric ideas. So thank you for sharing so much of your classroom practice with your classmates in the discussion board post. I think trading ideas that way is a huge part of the class, part of your learning experience. Some people wrote about their concern with not knowing who's going to learn writing and who won't get better. How would we know? How would we even know if our teaching made the difference? And my dissertation advisor had a really good metaphor for that. She said teaching people is like, so the people are seeds, throwing seeds over a wall. So not only will you not know who grows and who won't, but you'll never find out because they're over a wall. You won't be able to see the growth that they have in the grades after they take your class or the years after they take your class. So, yeah, you just kind of have to accept that. I think particularly in college classes because they're not necessarily around after that semester and you only have a semester, you don't have a year. But I've found that somewhat comforting, like letting go of the expectation that I will know how they turned out, a couple years after they have my class. Another sort of visual metaphor that it kind of crystallized for me what I had been doing after reading a lot about pedagogy and how people learn. Because this book, I went to a presentation by one of the authors at UT Austin. It's called How Learning Works, 7 Research-Based Principles for Smart Teaching. It's by Susan Ambrose and 4 other authors. So that's the cover of the book. I think it's from around 2012. Yeah, let's just say that. It's about how people learn, and in the chapter called What Kinds of Practice and Feedback Enhance Learning, that's really relevant to writing pedagogy because you are assigning them to do things that they are practice writing, and then you give them feedback on the writing, and you can do that as much as you have time to in a writing class. So this loop made me realize, yes, this is what I do, and I need to build this even more into my classroom practice. And so it has this cycle of, I'm not going to hold this straight, cycle of practice and feedback. And so you can see that there are 3 main nodes on the cycle. The first one is practice, so the students practice something really specific. And then you observe the performance, or you don't even have to. A classmate can observe the performance. You don't have to grade every single thing. Leading to targeted feedback about the specific thing that you wanted them to practice. So then they get more chances to practice after receiving the feedback. And the authors say that this can enhance mastery of something. So I know a lot of you assign different parts of the writing process and doubt the efficacy of it. And I would agree with you, but when students get to my classes, they know what the writing process is. It usually follows a straight line, and coming up with ideas is called brainstorming or outlining or free writing or something like that. So I don't require those kinds of process documents, but I do like daily activities, not every day, but some short writing activities in class that I'll take up and give quick feedback on for the next class, and that is a luxury that I have as a college teacher. So I'm not saying everyone can do that, but I teach very structured academic writing, and writing textual analysis, analysis of literary texts or other kinds of texts was a class that I taught a lot at UT Tyler until recently. So for example, in the early papers, or the whole semester, but really heavily in the early papers, I want them to be able to use and choose and use and incorporate textual evidence well. So deciding when they need to summarize something or paraphrase or quote it directly, and then how to meld those sections with their own words, not even in the service of a very coherent argument at first, because tackling that skill is difficult for a lot of them and they need practice. So the way I teach that process is have them work on, choosing a quotation for good reasons, in class writing that down, having them incorporate it and try to get a grammatically correct sentence with both parts in there. And then I basically can do like check, minus on those to say, yeah, you're doing this right, keep doing that in your papers, or you need to go back to this chapter, or I need to talk about this more in class because a lot of people haven't gotten this yet. So it's a really targeted practice on an important skill that I'm going to be grading on. So they're motivated to try to get it right. And then we might do another one of those, or we might practice another skill that I'll really be looking for in their paper. And then they do the paper, and I always structure the assignment so that the skills they've practiced on one will lead into the other. And it's just being thoughtful about how the assignments are arranged, as I have done in this class. So I don't know what works for other teachers, but I love talking about ideas, and I hear you that teaching the steps of the writing process, especially with the post process reading that you did, can seem too hardened. Like it can feel to the students like it's busy work, or it can feel to you like it's busy work, like you have to have something to grade and you've done it this way, so you have to keep doing it that way. You don't have to keep doing it that way. Also, if you are grading on a pre-writing activity, sometimes my students ask me, do we have to do an outline? No, you never have to do an outline. Your pre-writing process is however you want. And if we do an outline, does the paper have to follow that exactly? So that can lock students into a bad paper. Like if their ideas are not developed when they have to turn in the outline, then they'll still have those undeveloped ideas that they turn into a paper. So if you're interested, I can share more of my ideas and things I've tried in class for basically leading them down the writing process and helping them to reflect on their own writing process. But I won't go into that for this little video. Back to the seeds thing. You talked about like, how do you know who's improving, and that not everyone can become a great writer. And I agree. And I think it was Aristotle. I should have found the citation before I did this video. Basically, not everyone's going to become an eloquent writer, but everyone can improve because they can practice and you can look at what they've done and suggest ways they can do it again. Also, I'm heavy on assigning revisions and requiring revisions and getting lots of comments they can revise. So that's my teaching of the writing process, probably weighted more towards the post first draft into the revision part of the process. I loved the comment about audience. This was in the process and post-process thread, but it applies to the rhetoric one too. When teaching students to think about audience, have them think about their social media presence and who the audience might turn out to be in the future. Employers, but even more applicable than that is maybe their future boyfriend or girlfriend's parents. What would they think if you post this awful GIF or something? So I thought that was really smart. Someone had remarked as an aside that they can't edit their discussion board posts, and that option was closed the first few weeks of class, but I opened it back up. It was a thing I had to change. So you can edit them now if you need to. And about the rhetoric posts, I thought y'all's comments were mostly great. A lot of people had some questions about, mostly about the word enthymeme, that was something they didn't understand as much, but most people did seem to understand it. It's kind of a hard thing to explain because it is so dependent on audience. And so what I wrote in response to one person's post about it was, my students often get it when I try to teach enthymemes, which I don't always do. They can sometimes get that an unstated premise is a judgment, like this thing is good, this thing is bad. So stating what the dominant culture, how it values certain behaviors or certain values, or you get the idea. So it's things that can go unsaid. It could be sometimes the idea of dog whistles fits into this, like if a politician is giving a speech, which is the classical rhetorical situation, and they are using coded language that a certain group of the audience, a small segment of the audience, would recognize. Oh, that has echoes of language that we know has a double meaning. And so the rhetor, the speaker, hasn't said that thing out loud, but he knows that there's an assumption shared that doesn't have to be stated, that some parts of the audience will just get it. But it's not all nefarious. I mean, we all carry assumptions around with us all the time, and it's hard to unpack those. But I don't spend a lot of time teaching logical reasoning, at least not using those terms, and so it's not something that we're all on board with at the college level, if you are curious about that. So some person speculated about that maybe that would be useful in high school students' preparation for the STAR writing test. And because there's no authentic audience for the STAR writing test, I don't know how you guys teach. I have so many thoughts and feelings about the STAR test or any other standardized writing test. I can't really imagine how teaching about enthymemes would really help on that test. But again, I love talking about teaching, so if you have individual questions, then I'm happy to chat about that. So I wanted to chime in on the teaching ideas and thinking about how writing process pedagogy really fits in very well with rhetorical pedagogy. That it's really the thinking about the ultimate audience that is so central to rhetoric. And just to say that you did really well, and I'm excited talking to some of you about your research ideas heading into your annotated bibliography. You have all spring break to work on those. Just as a reminder, annotated bibliography is due Saturday the 25th. You've got a long time to work on those. And spring break is the week of the 11th. It's the next week, 11th through the 17th. So I'm not expecting you to do anything. I'll respond to your messages, but I'm not going to be in my office probably those days. So that's about it. Keep up the hard work and let me know when you are running into difficulties or if you need to talk to someone about your ideas, because talking to someone is a really great pre-writing activity for a lot of people. That's one of the great values of a writing center, is that students can go to someone and just chat to someone who has thought a lot about writing and has has experience and training talking to other people about writing, regardless of their own writing ability, really. Just to listen to the person and point out things that seem to be important, or ideas that seem really viable or good. So conversation can be really fruitful for developing those writing ideas. So have a great spring break, and I will look forward to continuing to work with you. Sorry, I'm a little loopy today, but it's okay. Okay,